Yeah. I unmuted.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Gautam bhai.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah.
Welcome, sir. Let's start with a brief introduction of our speaker, CA Dr. Gautam Navin Shah. CA Dr. Gautam Navin Shah is a practicing chartered accountant. Beside being a chartered accountant, he also holds a PhD in business finance, where the topic of his thesis was management of charitable institution, a financial perspective. He has completed graduation in the commerce stream from Narsi Munje College of Commerce and Economics. He is currently the managing partner of Gautam Shah and Associate. His firm provides all the traditional services of chartered accountants such as direct, indirect tax, FEMA advisory, statutory and tax audit, internal audit and risk management services, etc. and provides additional services in various allied fields of legal management, business recruiting and investment consultancy. He specializes in issues related to charitable NGO, estate planning, private trust, family settlement, wills, arbitration and other allied fields. He is guest professor at SP Jain Management Institute. He is a core member of BCAS Corporate Affairs and Allied Law Committee. He also conducts charity clinic at BCAS. He has delivered talk on charitable institutions on various forums including BCAS and ICAI. He has been awarded Outstanding Research Contribution Award by the University of Mumbai. He has been acknowledged for his contribution at the International Conference on Commerce and Management, Mumbai University by awarding outstanding research paper for last several years. His motto is to help people with the knowledge that he has gained, as he staunchly believes that knowledge gained is of no use unless it is shared with others who did not get the same opportunity that he did. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for the introduction. Can I now start my presentation?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. Yeah. So good evening, friends. ICSE is involved into dissemination of quality knowledge to its members and public at large, as always. It is an honor and pleasure to be invited by Pune branch of WRC of ICICI. My appreciation to the Chairman CA Abhishek Damne, Vice Chairman CA Samir Lada, Secretary and Treasurer CA Kashinath Pathare, Branch in Charge CA Deepak Korgaonkar, my Session Chairman CA Sashan Patki, and other committee members and support staff for organizing virtual CPA meeting of filing of ITR, a practical guide. I have always, have this intention and always thought about it that gaining knowledge is the first step to wisdom. Sharing it is the first step to humanity. So let me take you all to the journey of the lost world, that is ITR 7, filing of ITR 7, which will definitely help you understand the complexity in filing the income tax return. In filing any income tax return, there is a machine involved. In our case, it is CPC. So blessing of CPC is also required while you are filing your ITR, any ITR, especially ITR 7, which is a very complex situation where really CPC plays a very important role, whether what you feed in is acceptable to them or not. So first question would be whether filing ITR 7 is simple, complex, complicated, or impossible. First, we will go through the ITR 7 process. At the end, we'll come to know whether it is simple, complex, impossible, or what. Who can file ITR 7? There are two parts, A and B. There are 24 pages, which we will be, we'll be dealing with it. We will be only dealing with certain schedules because ITR 7 is meant for electoral trust, politician trust, investment trust, business trust. So we are not going to deal with that. We are only going to deal with the charitable trust, which is there. And we will be dealing with the following schedules. That is Schedule 1, J, K, VC, AI, ER, EC, BP, and 115 TD. Other schedules are not relevant to the charitable trust. I'll just share my screen. Am I audible, Shashanji?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yeah, I'll just start. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
So first of all, a very small distinction between what is a public and private trust, because many a time, not we professionals, but as a layman, when the people come to us, they always talk about, why not? I want to create a trust, and while creating, when we think about it and we talk to them, ultimately it turns out to be that it is not a public trust, but it is a private trust. So a small distinction which is there, which is between a public and private trust, is that public trust, the beneficial endowment vests in an uncertain and a fluctuating body of person, which are either the public at large or some considerable portion of it specifying a particular description. On the other hand, in case of a private endowment, the beneficiaries are definite and are certain individuals. Private trust, ITR 5 would be applicable. ITR 7 is not applicable to a private trust, so that care has to be taken by we professionals. Now, who are eligible to file ITR 7? ITR 7 can be filed for persons including companies required to furnish return under section 139 4A, 139 subclause 4B, 139 subclause 4C, and 139 subclause 4D. We are very much concerned with 139 4A, that is every person in receipt of income derived from property held under trust or other legal obligations wholly for charitable or religious purpose, or in part only for such purpose where only charitable income is there. Charitable trust which is created, that is charitable trust as far as Maharashtra is concerned, which has been registered under the Maharashtra Public Trust Act 1950, a charitable society which has been registered in Maharashtra under the society's registration of 1860, as well as in the Maharashtra. It's a unique thing that you need to again register yourself into Maharashtra Public Trust Act of 1950 also, if you're a charitable society, and Section 8 company. So this ITR 7 is predominantly for the class of people where charitable trust income and their utilization is there. So 139 4A defines who are the people who can file this, who are eligible to or applicable for ITR 7. 139 4B also is that where the chief executive officer of every political party, means a political party return is also ITR 7. Then if there is a research association, news agency, mutual fund, securitization trust, investor protection fund, etc., they are also eligible to file under ITR 7. And every university, college, or other institution referred to in 35 and 35, which is required to furnish return of income or loss, they are also eligible to file under ITR 7. Many a times a representation is made to CBDT that why not we have a separate return only for a charitable trust, because we can have a set of returns where it can be ITR 7 can be for a charitable trust, ITR 7A can be for a political trust, ITR 7B for an electoral trust, 7. So like that, for everything there should be a separate thing. But unfortunately, nothing is been followed or nothing has been taken. They want to create a confusion, and they want to look into it as if the filing is so complicated that even a chartered accountant, sometimes we who are well versed with filing of ITRs, sometimes we also make mistake, because the system itself is made in such a way. There are a lot of schedules, there are a lot of other details which are there but which are not relevant to the charitable trust. While I go through this ITR 7, I will be able to tell you the exact thing where the mistakes are happening and why there is always a demand by the CPC, as well as why there is at the end there is unnecessary tax payable by a charitable trust, even though if they are registered under section 12A or 12AA, and they have to pay tax. Why? Because there are certain columns which is not been taken care of. There the certain important information that has to be filled in ITR 7 which has been missed. So who is eligible to file this return as 139 4 I said, and person whose income is unconditionally exempt under various clauses of section 10 and who are not mandatorily required to furnish their return of income under section 139 may use this form for filing their return. This is just an indicative list. There is local authority, Prime Minister, National Relief Fund, Swachh Bharat Kosh, Clean Ganga Fund, Recognized Provident Fund, Approved Superannuation, and New Pension. These are only indicative. There are a lot of other charitable organizations which are exempt. They are not supposed to file the return, but they can, if they want, they can file in ITR 7. So that becomes more transparent, and it becomes a very good practice for that trust to always file this return so that it comes into a public domain. Understanding of ITR 7, I have split that into part A, which is a general section, and part B, which is a TI, that is a total income, how it has been calculated. ITR 7 has only 24 pages, which requires utmost skill and knowledge to understand and fill up the required details, which will be understood by the AI. AI means CPC that we have here. That is what is artificial intelligence that has been based in Bangalore right now. He should understand what we are filing. So based on that, everything can be okay. Your 143.1 can be processed properly, and whatever you have filed, what is there on the computation has been brought at the end. Now, before I start my presentation and I start my part A general information, what is required, the very important thing is that whatever you fill in, like this is a, we are now into an age where everything has to be, data has to be entered, and there is a software which we have. So whatever we enter at the end of the day, whatever we enter has to come out. Computer has its own brain. Computer has the program, they do certain working in it, but if we enter something wrong, definitely the end result would be definitely wrong. Because let us take an instance, your computation, if your computation is not made proper. For example, I have seen in lot of computation which has been prepared, your 11.1a application that you get, that 15% accumulation compulsory that you get, sometimes that is not being calculated properly. Sometimes the consideration of income is not proper. Sometimes, like a corpus donation is considered as an income on which 15% accumulation has been taken, and unnecessary thereafter there is a demand which is raised by CPC, or at the time of scrutiny you may have a problem. So your preparing of computation of total income is also very important, so that your ITR 7 can be filled up properly. And mind you, the computation of charitable trust is altogether a different thing. We don't have any heads of income. Like, in a case where we have got a situation wherein ITR 7 has a column which is having a house property column, where you can, put in your house property income and all that. So there we get this deduction under section 24, 30% deduction, which is there. But, that is not applicable to a charitable trust, because we don't have any set of, we don't have any separate heads where we have to put in. Everything goes into income from other sources only, and it has been devised that way. So I cannot have a business income where I put it in business income. I cannot have a house property, I can put it in house property. I cannot put it in capital gains into capital gain. There are in ITR 7, there are these all things where we have house property, a different schedule is there. For capital gain, there is a different schedule. For business income, there is a separate schedule. But as far as charitable trust income is concerned, there are fixed things where we need to have a fixed schedule which need to be filled up. Otherwise, there can be a problem at the end. So computation, again, it becomes very important for us to keep in mind that computation has to be really been prepared very, very, thoroughly, and very, very, the knowledge of that should be proper. Let's take for an example, you want an accumulation for 1 year. And we have seen that, form number 10 is been filed online for taking accumulation for 1 year. There is no resolution, there is nothing, and unnecessary there can be a situation which can be a problem. Or sometimes when I want 5 years accumulation, 9A form has been filed online, and in the computation itself I'm writing that this is exemption, which this exemption will be given under 11.1 explanation 1 to that, and that for which 1 year 1 year only will be required for me to accumulate. So in the next year I will be using this money. But unfortunately, Form 10 has been filed for 5 years accumulation. So here, we professional has to take care. I know that, many of the professional firm that we are into, we don't fill ITR returns, because ITR is given to our article clerk or to a person who has been handling this ITR in this office. But mind you, I request you personally that you have to look into each and ITR which has been filed. what is the end thing which comes into it, because ultimately, whatever you going to feed in the computer, the end result would be there. Let's take for example, just few days back, there was a system, this ITR 7, which has been just been notified. We were trying to fill up a return, and in that, 11.1 subsection D, that is a corpus donation deduction, was not given. So we intimated to CBDT, and CBDT has rectified that in the utility. While filling up the computation in the ITR 7 from the software, 11.1D deduction was allowed. But while it was exported or transferred to the utility was not giving us that exemption under section 11.1D as a corpus donation. That corpus donation was taxable on a maximum marginal rate, and tax was worked out. That has been rectified now for the time being, so not to worry about that. But these are some of the areas which we need to look into it, that what is the end thing. Because once maybe your software is calculating the income properly, but once you transfer that to your utility, the utility has its own features. Like again, carry forward of losses. There is no provision in the ITR 7 for carry forward of losses, even after the Supreme Court judgment of Subros Education Society, where now the carry forward of losses is allowed, and it can be set off against your subsequent income that you are, or surplus that you are going to generate. But there is no provision in the ITR. So sometimes that is a very, very dicey thing, how to go around with it. So here, after going through ITR, maybe, I'll be able to, I'm not saying that you may know 100%, but I'll be able to tell you certain things which are very important and which you really follow. There are chances of minimum mistakes. There can be a mistake, but there are chances of minimum mistakes, and the wrong demands which are calculated by CPC will be minimized. That is what I assure you right now. So let us first go to the personal details. That is part A. That is a general thing. If you see, the first thing is a name. Name they want as mentioned in the deed of creation, establishing, incorporation, or formation, not what is mentioned on the PAN. Because if you see the charitable trust which is there, or the society which is there, sometimes the name is really very big name, but at the time when the PAN number is taken, that name has been shortened, and then in the PAN the name is different, a short name comes into it, but in the deed it is a different thing. So just to capture this, they have said that whatever is there in your trust deed, on the memorandum of association, and your in the society, charitable institution, or the section 8 company, we need to put that name. Then we need to go to the status. Status here is very important. It is AOP or BAF of charitable trust under Maharashtra Public Trust Act and charitable society. So we need to select the exact column that what status it should be. Then there is a place for project details. Now people have here also done a lot of things, that many of the charitable trusts, they don't have a project in the sense that there are big trusts which they have a project. Let us say there is a project of giving education to a particular institution. So there is a separate project for that institution, charitable institution, wherein they have the income which is been allocated to there, and the expenses which is allocated to there. But for a normal trust, let us take an example that they receive a donation, and that donation is given for the education purpose, medical purpose, relief of poverty. So your project here becomes your education expenses, your relief of poverty, or medical expenses. And thereafter there is a nature of activities. A nature of activity, either it is a charitable activity or it is a religious activity. So you have to make a mention of that. It is a charitable activity and or the religious activity, whatever you want to make a. So that classification is very much important. Nature of activity is very, very important. Thereafter, there is a classification. Now, classification is very, very important. That suppose I have an education expenditure, so I have to have that classification of education. I have a yoga income, so I have to have that yoga as a classification. So once you do all this classification and then you classify in a proper way, the CPC understand that this is a charitable institution, because the basis on which the projects are defined and basis on which the classification is defined and the nature of activity, it can then sense that this is a charitable trust return which they have filed, and then they will come to whether it is exempt under section 11, any exemption is taken, whether they are registered under 12AA, that will come on a later. Details of registration or approval under the Income Tax Act is mandatory. Give correct details regarding the registration or approval. Registration under section 12A, if you have a 12A certificate before 1996. If your registration is after 1996, that 12A becomes 12AA. So either you are registered under section 12A or you are registered under section 12AA, or you are or you have got an approval under section 1023. So any of these 1023 which is there, we are concerned right now with 1023, 4, 5, 6 and 6A. So there, you know, again, it is in sync with the charitable institution which we are talking about. So this approval details, this 12A detail, you need to mandatory fill up everything which is there. Here it has been given very, very clearly that what are the columns which are there that we need to fill up. It is a section under which registered or approved. Date of registration or approval, notification or registration number, approving registering authority. So these are mandatory. If you fill up this mandatory thing, you know, then there cannot be anything wrong. Like, you know, your you know, application under section 11 and 12 will be rightly given by the income tax department, by the CPC, because once you say that you are 12AA registered, or once you say that you are approved under section 1023, immediately, you know, whatever income that has been filled up later on, they will try to, you know, synchronize that, and they will give the, wherever the exemption is there, wherever the utilization is there, so that, you know, whatever utilization is that you get, and whatever the balance income which is there, based on that, what you have done would be allowed to you. So details of registration or approval under income tax is a very important thing which you need to fill up. Now a situation has come wherein a charitable institution has a 12A registration, but unfortunately the 12A registration is lost, or they must be having a 12A registration, but it is not being traceable right now. Unfortunately, if it is before 1977, yeah, before 1977, even the income tax department has no records of that 12A which was taken at that point of time, because this 12A came into 1973, and first 4-5 years it was not a separate department which was issuing 12A. It was a normal commissioner of income tax who was sitting as a normal commissioner who was issuing this 12A to the charitable institution. Here the problem starts, you know, this is where the problem starts, that if you are not able to, you know, fill up your 12A details, definitely that trust is at a loss. And there the problem comes. So the new section which was introduced, which is now going to be introduced from 1st April 2021, I think, you know, people should take that as an opportunity, and, you know, they can then apply again for 12AB, so that in future, whatever returns are filed, you can do it. Now, what is happening in such situation? They have a 12AA. Why they have a 12A and 12AA is because they have a ATG certificate. Now, once you have a ATG certificate, definitely you should have a 12A. Then only that ATG can be given, because that is a subsequent event. Once you get 12A, then the ATG comes. So you have a ATG. Originally in ATG, they don't used to mention the 12A registration number. Now it has been mentioned in all the subsequent ATG registration. So here also care has to be taken. Many people have filed ITR 5 for that, and, you know, they have, you know, still, you know, means whatever the things are there, they are. Now here, again, 12A is there, but we are filing ITR 5. There was no option, so they have filing ITR 5 for it. Now, details of registration or approval under any law that I just mentioned about it. In the details of registration or approval under any other law. Now, if you are registered in the Maharashtra Public Trust Act, you need to fill up the detail of your whatever, you know, registration number that you have, registration details that you have in the Office of Charity Commissioner. If you are registered under the Society Registration Act, you need to fill up that. You are a Section 8 company, you need to fill up the MCA, the registration number which is allocated to you. So here also this detail becomes very important, whether under any state or central law the trust is registered or not. Now we come to the filing status, additional information to be entered. Now filing status, everything is okay, like, you know, return filed under which section, under 139(1), if it is filed before the due date. And mind you, as you know right now, the last day to file the return is 30th October and not 31st. Not it is 31st October and not 30th November. Why I'm telling 31st October is because we need to file our form 10B on or before 31st October. So once your form 10B is freezed, then you know whatever it is, then there is no use of filing the return of income late. The CBT has given, the government has given 1 month time only to file the income tax return. But they are very smartly paid. They said, no, you have to file your audit report under section form 10B on or before 31st of October 2020 or 10BB. Here the catch is so that your last day is not 30th November has been, notified by them. Only the return filing is 30th November. So your filing status, and if you file even 1 day late, let us say you have filed your form 10B on 1st of November, there are chances that you may not get any of your application under section 11 and 12. So your gross total income would be taxed, and the worst part would be that they tax at a MMR rate. They don't tax at an individual rate where a slab rate should be applicable to you, but they don't do it. That is at a MMR rate, at a maximum margin rate, they levy a tax, and a huge tax liability is created on a charitable institution. As they rightly say, as the department rightly says, that even paying tax is a charitable activity. But mind you, if you see the object clause of our trust or the memorandum of association, or for the society charitable trust or for the section 8 company, we don't have any object clause where we can write that paying income tax is a charitable activity. So mind you, again, if there is no object that paying tax is not been looked after very good, actually, if you see the law very clearly, it is not the trust who has to pay a tax. It is the trustee or a managing committee or the director who has to pay a tax. If you literally see what exactly is written in the act, never a trust can pay any tax, because the trust is the money of the trust gets a donation from the people at large. So we are dealing with the people money. So that money cannot be used for any of the activity for which it is not been created. So this is a very firm thing. Like, I would like to say that please see to it that you need to file your return of income on or before 31st of October, and see to it that you at least file your form 10B on or before 31st October. Otherwise that can be a problem. So here an additional feature which has been entered, as you know, I had compared the return between 1920, assessment year 2021 to your assessment year 1920. And this is one new thing which I found out, that is a unique number or document identification number. This unique number and document identification number is related to your application under section 119. What is this application under 119? 119 application is actually condonation of delay in filing form number 10B, where you have not filed your form number 10 or 10B online or on or before filing the return of income in the past assessment. So once you file an application, if your application is condoned by the Commissioner of Income Tax Exemption, then an order is generated, and where this unique number or document identification number is given. So once this order comes, you have to again file your return stating this unique number and document identification number, and based on that, whatever demands were created due to non-filing of form 10 or 10B, or late filing of form 10 or 10B, or on not filing online this form 10 or 10B, then all this demand can be, it can be set off by, getting this order uploaded again on the on the utility side of it. Section under which exemption is claimed, drop down will be provided. It is very, very important that you select section 11, because if you don't select, then again your exemption would, your application would not be done. So this section has also become very, very important. Once you, drop down, you select 11, rest assured all your exemptions would be given and all your application would be given. If the return is filed in response to any notice, what I said, if there is any notice, let us say 148 notice has been issued for the past returns which are not been filed by a charitable institution, then this notice will contain the unique number and date of this order notice of birth which has to be entered, and thereafter you have to upload the return against the 148 notice that you have received. The other details that are required is if you have any project which falls under advancement of any other object of general, then here let us say there are limbs which are there, and you don't fall under any of these limbs. That is education expenses, medical donation, relief of poverty, and various other yoga expenses. Then you have this relief of poverty. So there we need to understand very clearly about it, that this is not required for the time being, and we need to be very clear about it, that if you are really doing any other activity, then you need to specify that this is the activity which is there, and on that basis it has to be brought to the notice of the income tax department. As you have seen that only if you do advancement of activity, then that percentage is there 20%. Your total receipt should not exceed 20%, otherwise your 215 can be can create a problem. So other details, this is also very compulsory, you need to enter. Then the other details, any change in the objects or activity, I think this has come with effect from 2017, wherein a new section was introduced, that is 12A subsection 1 subclause AB, wherein if there is any change in the object clause. Now change in the object clause can come when you change the object clause. If it is a charitable trust where we have filed a scheme under section 50A subsection 1 of the Maharashtra Public Trust Act, and you have changed the object in the Office of Charity Commissioner and you have got an order, then you need to again apply for your 12AA registration afresh, because there is a change in the object. If it is a society, then you need to file an amendment application under section 12 of the Society Registration Act of 1860 and under section 22 of the Maharashtra Public Trust Act for the change of the object in the charitable society. So once you change the object, then you need to intimate to the income tax department. Many a times people have asked a query that they have not changed the objects, whether still they have to go for a re-registration under section 12A subsection 1 AB. I said no, because the act itself clearly, the section itself clearly mentioned that there should be change in the object or activities. If there is no change in the object or activity, please don't go for the re-registration under 12.1 under section 12A. So let us make it very clear that this is. Now here the controversy is that date of such change. When this need to be intimated, because once you file an application under section 50A1 in the Office of Charity Commissioner, it is not that you immediately get the order. The scheme which has been framed takes time in the Office of Charity Commissioner, and once the scheme takes time, once the order is proclaimed in the in the Charity Commissioner office, after you receive the order, then only you can file your 12A. But the wording which is being used is that once you accept the change, now let us say I pass a resolution in my charitable society institution cases. So what I do, I pass a resolution taking a sanction in the extraordinary general body meeting, wherein I say that I want to now change the object of the clause, and it has been approved by all the people who were present in that meeting. Now there is a stand taken by the department that once that has been accepted, then whatever application which is filed in the Charity Commissioner office is only the intimation that is given. And we have argued that no, it is not like that, because there can be a situation wherein my application under section 12 of the Society Registration Act may be rejected by the Charity Commissioner office. They may not allow me to change the object. So that's not a sure sort. So here what we have taken a stand is that once the order is issued, within 30 days from the date of the order, we need to make an application under section 12A subsection 1 subsection AB. So within 30 days from the receipt of the order, and not from the filing of the application or from the accepting of the resolution in the extraordinary general meeting or in the AGM. So here this detail need to be filed and to be intimated. If the fresh application is not filed, let us say you have changed the object and you have not filed the application, then you need to be very much be ready for your 115 TD, which will just deal with it, that this 115 TD, what exactly it is and how it will work, because immediately that 115 TD would trigger, will be attracted, and whatever the income, whatever the assets, whatever the valuation we do, you need to pay a tax on it plus the aggregated tax, and it's going to be a very huge tax which the charitable institution would be paying. So mind you, this fresh application need to be filed within 30 days. Whether the powers are there in the with the Commissioner of Income Tax assumption for condoning this application which is filed delayed, I don't think so. There is any power with the Commissioner of Income Tax. The only alternative would be to go to ITAT and seek an request for the condonation to them. Thereafter, there is FCRA registered institution which are there. They have to furnish the registration number and date of registration. Also, they have to provide foreign contribution received during the year and state the purpose for it. So here they want to capture that, whatever FCRA, income is there, that also has to be reflected and it has to be shown so that, it is there with them also. Income tax department also has that, information about the thing, and very well, for the purpose for which has been received, it has to be there. Then there is, this is where that we need to give audit information. Are you liable for audit under income tax act? Yes. Then under which section? So we need to specify section 12A, 1B or 44AB, because many a times, let us take an example of a hospital which has a medical shop in the premises. The view taken by the department is that that it is a advancement of any other activity, and there are in the initial stages two notices were issued wherein we have violated section 2 subsection 15, and our registration was for that particular year was cancelled, so that our application on the 11 was not given. But now I think the matter is at rest, that if your prime activity is medical activity and your other ancillary activity is there, then don't have to worry about it. We are really 215 compliant only, so we did not worry about it. So in a situation, let us say there is a hospital and we have a medical shop. Now the medical shop has an income which is more than the 44AB minimum required. So you need to do a tax audit for that, and you need to submit the tax audit. As such, it is a type of a business where what we do is that we keep a separate sets of book under section 139 subsection 4 capital A. So here we need to have a separate sets of book, and if it is more than the limit for 44AB, you need to do a tax audit. So here you need to also mention that you are liable for 44AB. So this way you need to be very clear that 100% we are liable for 12A subsection 1B. Why? Because that is why we filed that form 10B, because form 10B is the audit report for the income tax department, where that is coming under section 12A subsection 1 and sub B. So that has to be clearly mentioned. Otherwise, if it is not mentioned, then again the application in the 11 has a problem, and the computer is not catching that application, and unnecessarily there would be a tax on the income without giving any application expenses to you. Are you liable for audit under any act? We need to mention about it, that if you're liable under the Maharashtra Public Trust Act, you need to mention about that. If you're liable for under the Companies Act of 2013, you need to mention that, so that every detail is given and it has been properly mentioned. Then I think the later part becomes very, very easy. Now we come to the mandatory schedules for charitable institutions. I'm going okay now. I'm not going very fast now, my friends.
No, sir.
Hanji?
No, sir.
I'm going okay now. I'm not going very fast now.
Not at all.
Not at all now. So now let me go to this mandatory schedules for charitable institution. We go to schedule 1. There is a change in the schedule 1. If you see the return of income ITR 7 for assessment year 1920 and you compare this with your ITR 2021, the accumulation part has been changed. Here it is really very, very funny about it, because if you see your assessment year 1920 return, there you have a accumulation which you can do it on in the 6th year. Now they have changed that to 5 years. So what happens here is that 1 year is short. Now let us take an example. You have an accumulation in the period in the financial year. Now they have, again here they have written financial year. So that is why I have been, I'll be referring to it as a financial year. So let us take a case where in the financial year 2014-15, there is an accumulation of 50 lakhs rupees that you have accumulated. And, as per law, if it is 14-15, then 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20, and in 21. So you get till last day is 31st March 21. If you see your ITR for assessment year 1920, that is the previous year ITR. Now what has happened that my accumulation for the financial year 14-15, I need to, spend in the financial year 1920 itself. So now year of accumulation, which shall in no case will exceed 5 years. So within 5 years, you need to accumulate. Otherwise, if you don't accumulate, whatever the accumulation income is there would be liable for tax under section 11(3). So here, let me be very clear about it. People have made computations in such a way that whatever accumulation is there, again they accumulate for further 5 years. It is not allowed. Once you get an accumulation is for one. It's not that that accumulation can be perpetual every 5 years. So once in 14-15 financial year, if there's any accumulation, in 1920 you need to spend. If suppose you have not spent in 1920, then whatever the accumulation is there will be liable for tax, and it will be a straight tax. There would be no application, no deduction, nothing will be allowed. So here we need to be very careful, and we need to prepare a chart in such a way that every year accumulation has to be taken care of. It is very easy for me for any surplus which is generated during the year for accumulating, for a later period. What we are doing, we are deferring it. It's very, very easy. But mind you, this is it cannot be done in a situation like this here. We need to spend that within 5 years, and then within 5 years, if it is not spent, it would be taxable. There is one more query which comes up when we discuss about this. The query is, they say that whether once I accumulated in 14-15, then after 5 years, again I get to accumulate for another 5 years. No, it's not like that. Every year income you can accumulate for 5 years. Like let us say for 14-15, you have a surplus of 50 lakhs rupees. Then you can accumulate that for 5 years. In 15-16 financial year, you have a surplus again of, let us say, 25 lakhs rupees. You can again accumulate for 5 years. It is not that once you accumulate for 5 years, you cannot. It has to be accumulated. So here, every year you get this accumulation, but not that, after 5 years, what is remaining, you cannot again accumulate that income. That income which you are not able to spend has to be compulsorily been utilized. That has to be offered to taxation. Otherwise, it would be wrong. There could be a penalties and, unnecessary prosecutions from the income tax department. So here, this was a small change which I would like to intimate that within 5 years you need to do. One more thing which is very, very, we have seen, sorry, I'm just giving you some additional information as for my practical experience for last 30-35 years in this charitable trust practice. I have seen that, when this accumulation happens, what we write, we are writing in the initial period object, it will be spent for the object of the trust. And department is taking a view that, no, it is not a specific, object that you have mentioned. I feel, that is a wrong stand taken by the department, because nowhere it is mentioned that it should be a specific object. I have writing that I will be spending on the object of the trust. Mind you, this form number 10 has been revised of lately, and now they want us to give for each, whatever, let us say, let us take for an example, the 31st March 20 return that we are going to file. And I have a surplus of 50 lakhs rupees. Now this 50 lakhs rupees, when I'm filing form number 10, I have to give a specific mention about it, how I'm going to spend this 50 lakhs. So I have to bifurcate that, 50 lakhs And if I say, let us say, I say 10 lakhs rupees for education, 10 lakhs rupees for medical, 10 lakhs rupees for relief of poverty, 10 lakhs rupees for other charitable objects as specified in my trust deed, and 10 lakhs rupees for the yoga. Now, if I specify that, now I have to go ahead in the subsequent year and spend that to whatever objects which is there. That is really, I'm telling you, very bad, because there is no leverage given. We cannot, we are a charitable trust. I cannot decide today what I'm going to spend in another 5 years. Maybe the requirement would be that in the second or third year, I have a requirement for an education expenses. I have only 10 lakhs and I have an expenses of 25 lakhs rupees. I don't have any accumulation because I have only 10 lakhs rupees. So here again, it is something, the department has to consider this. They are making that tight compartment, unnecessary creating, disturbances and unnecessary getting into something which is not. They should give leverage to a charitable trust. As such, charitable trusts are been, managed, administered by the honorary people, and 90% of the people have no knowledge about the law. It is a professionals like us who guide them in a proper way and see to it that it has been managed properly. Now here again, you tell them that they only know that 50 lakhs is accumulated, and in the future they will go and spend anything. They will not go and refer to you again in 2020, in financial year 19, 50 lakhs was compromised in this way. So again, this is again, the department should come out with something that you can understand. We understand that there should be some system, but not make a system. Now again, a system where I cannot file my return even one day late. I don't know what is the mindset of this people who are framing a law. It's something really I'm not able to understand. Any other return I can file late. I have a belated return I can file, but not a charitable trust return. It is something, representation is made by Bombay Chartered Accountant Association Society and various other associations. Let's see whether it comes, because it's going to be a very tough for, charitable institution to survive. Even if you see in this pandemic, they are the people who have really worked very hard. Not that, government has not worked, but they are the people who have really worked very hard. Sorry. Let's go to Schedule J. Schedule J is statement showing the funds and investment as on the last day of the previous year. Here we need to show the investment which are there. And if you see that, at the very start, the column A which states in Schedule J, they show that in column A, part 1, balance in the corpus fund as on the last day of the previous year, and balance in the non-corpus fund as on the last day of the previous year. So this has to be mentioned very clearly, that what is your corpus fund and what is your non-corpus fund, and your details of investment deposit made under section 11.5. Now this part has to be taken care of it, that whatever investments are there, you need to mention about it, and whatever the columns are there has to be filled up properly, because this has to match with whatever the corpus donation is there and non-corpus donation is there. Based on that, your accumulation would be decided. Let us say in under 11.2, I have accumulated 50 lakhs rupees. So that 50 lakhs has to be mentioned here, that it has been invested under 11.5. Then only that is allowed. So part A is covered because of that. Part B is about the investment out of funds which is held on the last day of the previous year. Part C is an investment under 13.3, where the disallowance comes into play, that I have given this money to a trustee, and that is not allowed. So that has been disallowed. So that investment, let us say I have investment in a firm where one of the trust is a major shareholder, or he has a major stake in is there. So that would not be allowed, because any investment wherein the person is having substantial interest will not be allowed. So that would not be a eligible investment under section 11.5. Then other investment held on the last day of the previous year, and contribution donation which is received in kind but has not been converted into the mode specified under section 11.5. I say I have received saris by way of donation. Lot of temples, they receive saris. So that here I need to mention that, I have 100 saris which is received, which is not converted into, I have not sold that saris. I have not received that money back. So this has to be shown in that part of it, so that, the matching can happen in a proper way. We go to Schedule K. The Schedule K is a statement of particulars regarding the authors, founders, trustees, manager. Now, if you see, that schedules it is very clearly mentioned, name of the address, PAN, and now they have included Aadhaar, which they say it is if available. But I strongly believe that, we should mention the Aadhaars of each of the trustees who are there. The name of the person who were trustees manager during the previous year, that column has to be filled up. Then person with substantial contribution, they need to be mentioned out here. And name, address of the founder, manager, contributor, author, substantial, where the substantial contributor of the members which are there. Like, so this column has to be filled up wherever it is applicable and give maximum detail which is there. So that what happens that, the ITR 7 is filled up in a proper way. Now we come to a very, thereafter there is a schedule LA and schedule ET. LA is applicable to political parties. ET is applicable to electoral trust. I'm not dealing with that. Then there is a schedule VC, which is a very important schedule, that is voluntary contribution. Here, if you see, first they want all the voluntary contribution for the local, and thereafter they want for the foreign contribution. In the local also, they have bifurcated corpus fund donation and other than the corpus fund donation. In the other, they have bifurcated grant receipts from government, grant received from companies under CSR, other specific grants, and other donations. So they want everything, this detail is captured so that that can be correlated with the other details that they have in their. So here the AI, that is a computer, plays a very important role in matching and getting these details at in a tabular form. So it becomes very easy for them to again ascertain whether whatever is being shown in the income tax ITR is right or wrong, because they have other information with them, and based on that they will be doing a test checking about it whether you're showing all your income or not. Then there is a foreign contribution fund. There is a corpus fund donation, other than corpus fund donation, and foreign contribution. So total of local and foreign contribution, this would be your income for voluntary contribution. So there is a part B, which is a TI, that is a total income at the end of the ITR 7, which is there. So where this voluntary contribution, what we show is all the donations, that is including the corpus donation, including the grants, including the CSR, everything is captured. And there it will be reflected in the TI, that is your total income at the end of the ITR 7. And your total voluntary contribution, what has been received by the trust, can be known to them. Thereafter, there would be anonymous donation included in C, means whatever the donation in A and B which is there can be an anonymous donation which will be chargeable under 115 BC, and accordingly the tax calculation would be shown. They have given that also under D part of it, where aggregate of such anonymous donation received and 5% of total what is liable for anonymous donation chargeable under section 115 BBC. So that calculation is there in the ITR itself. So wherever anonymous donation is received, you need to identify that donation and show it in this, and whatever tax comes to it, please make a payment of that tax. That is what is required. Now this all will be required. Why? Because as you have seen, this also has been postponed. This year, last year's budget, they have come out with donation details that has to be filled up, and as it will be assigned to your 26 AS. So if I have given a donation, the charitable trust has to fill up the donation form that has been given, statement of donation, that is what has been said, where my name, my address, my PAN, and my amount would be reflected. So directly when my return, I'm opening up my return, the donation that I have given to the charitable institution will be reflected automatically. And even in the 26 years, it would be reflected by way of this much donation is given, and in the charitable trust also this information will come that this donation is given. So here, if suppose I don't have a name, address, and PAN, or if I have given the wrong name, address, and PAN, as sometimes people do, just to avoid whatever is there. So here the capture would be later on, it will be, they will come to find out about it, and whatever is not, whatever information which is not there, it would be, a tax would be levied on that. Then we come to AI. Now this is Also very important, aggregate of income. This is the income wherein other than the VC, that is voluntary contribution, you need to take into consideration here. Your receipt from the main object, your receipt from the incidental object. Let us say you have a shop, medical shop, or in the school you have a uniform shop, or you have a stationery shop, book shop. So all this income would be ancillary income, where receipt from incidental income, your rent income, your commission income, your dividend income, your interest income, your agriculture income, your net consideration on transfer of capital asset. So all this income would be captured in AI. So AI plus VC will be your total income. That is aggregate of income plus your voluntary contribution now will be your total income of the trust. It has to have everything, including your corpus donation. So whatever income that you earn, whatever income which has been there on the income and expenditure side, plus whatever the corpus or whatever the funds that you have transferred, total income would be AI plus VC plus AI. So the income part is now captured. Now we come to the ER part, that is the expenditure part. First we'll be dealing with the revenue expenditure, thereafter we'll be dealing with the capital expenditure. Here the revenue expenditure would be establishment and administrative expenses, wherein there are a lot of columns which are given like repairs, rents, audit fees, and everything is being shown out there. So this part also which is there, plus there is a depreciation. Now depreciation amount is, it will be allowed only if you have not taken the asset or the capital expenditure as a application in the past. So if no capital expenditure has been taken, depreciation would be allowed. So that depreciation can be taken into the other expenses which are there. Then there is an expenditure on the objects of the trust, that all the 7 limbs which are there, you need to mention either donation other than a corpus. Now here this is the very nice thing. It is other than the corpus. So whatever donation that you have paid to another trust, it will come here. But if a trust has paid a donation by way of a corpus, it will not be treated as an application. Please mind you. So any trust which is paying donation to another trust, and that donation is a corpus donation, it will not be allowed. If that donation is a normal donation, it will be allowed. Then there is a religious relief for poor, educational, yoga, medical relief, preservation of environment, preservation of monuments, general public utility. So this is expenditure on the object of the trust. Then now they have come out with a disallowable expenses. Disallowable expenses, they have a column of a bad debts. Now bad debts, if it is not been proved, it is not been linked to your income or expenditure, they can be disallowed. Any provisions which are there will be disallowed. Then donation forming part of the corpus fund. Donation forming part of the corpus fund will be disallowed here. Any other disallowable expenses. So our disallowable expenses will be worked out. Then the total revenue expenditure incurred during the year. Now if you see, the total revenue expenditure incurred during the year does not mean that this is the total expenses which is there as far as only revenue is concerned. So here there is no capital expenditure. We are only dealing with the revenue item. Thereafter there is total revenue expenditure. Then there is a source of fund to meet this revenue. So we need to give what are the sources of fund that we have generated. Against that this expenditure is there, and total amount applied during the previous year. Now if this total amount is without the disallowable expenditure, that disallowable expenditure does not go to the TI, that is your total income where the expenditure is there. So this disallowable expenditure is only given here to identify what are the disallowable expenses. This does not go to your total income as an expenditure. Now we go to EC, that is a capital expenditure. In the capital expenditure amount applied to charitable or religious purpose in India or for that stated object during the previous year. So that whatever capital expenditure it has been made, mind you, it cannot be a situation where what people have been doing, and again it is a wrong practice, that I have sold an asset and against that I have bought an asset. Now whatever the capital gain which is there, which is as per section 11 subsection 1A, I have claim exemption and and there is no tax on that. Now what they have done, whatever asset is been bought against the selling of this asset, they have claimed that as in the computation of total income as if it is a capital expenditure. So you cannot get twice. You cannot claim that against the capital gain, and you can claim that in against the other income. So it's a wrong practice. It's a wrong thing which has been done. Either once you have to do it. It can be done. Excluding, that is why I have written here very specifically, excluding amount exempt under section 11(1)(a). 1 meter, please. Now, after this, EC, that is expenditure on capital, there are schedules which are not applicable. That is IE to 1 to IE4 are not applicable to the SSC claiming exemption under section 11. Then there are HP, that is details of house property. I just, when I was starting my presentation, I have said that people have wrongly filled up this into house property, the rental income which comes to a charitable institution. They make a note in this and they claim that 30% reduction does not come, because this house property is not applicable to trusts which are having section 11, section 11, taking exemption under section 11 or under section 1023C. It's not applicable to them. So that this all columns, CG, that is capital gain, not applicable. Income from other sources, not applicable. OA, general, applicable for any other income under the head, that is for the profession which has been there. Now, schedule BP, here this is where it is applicable. Computation of income from business or profession, where we maintain a separate sets of books, and 11 subsection 4 is applicable. So business income, we need to fill up this column, and we need to give all of the relevant information about the surplus and what is there, and so that this can be taken into consideration in the total income at the end of the statement. So here the detail which is there is from business or profession other than speculative business or and specified business. So they have given the working of it, and it is generally a business profit that we need to show out here. And on that basis, that can be captured in the total income which has been there at the end of the ITR 7. Now we come to schedule CYLA, that is current year loss adjustment. Here again, if you rightly look into it, it is not applicable to us, because if you see the total income working at the end of the ITR 7, we are not allowed to carry forward any losses which is there. This is pertaining to the political trust, electoral trust, business trust, and every other trust other than the charitable trust. Then PTR is pass-through income is not applicable to us. Income chargeable to tax special rate not. Now 115 TD is really it is applicable to us. Now, when can a 115 TD be applicable? First of all, the situation when this 115 TD, we saw one instance wherein, suppose if there is a change in the object and we have not filed for the fresh registration under 12 for fresh registration certificate under section 12AA by making an application under section 12 subsection A subsection 1 subsection AB. So there we have seen that we don't make it, then 115 TD can be applicable. There can be a situation wherein the trust is now utilizing lot of expenses for an object which is not been his object, for their object. Let us say I am a 100% education object and now I'm trying to spend into medical objects. So again 115 TD can be applicable to it. So 115 or on your own, we can surrender 12A or 12AA registration. And once we surrender our 12A and 12AA registration, we need to do the calculation under section 115 TD for the accreted income on which accreted tax would be paid. There is a rule to it, there is a working to it, and on that working, tax would be levied. Generally, there is a two type of tax. One is the tax on the normal income that is there, one which is there, and there is one on the accreted. So there is twice the income is taxed. So roughly it comes to almost 60%. Whatever your income would be there, we need to pay 60% tax on that. And mind you, if a trust has any of the immovable property, then the taxation rate goes very high. Because let us say a very old trust, they have a property, let us say a property in Bombay, or there is a property in Pune, and now this was purchased way back, and at that time it was purchased at a very low rate, and now the rates have gone up. So what happens that, we need to consider today's valuation. Based on that, what is the difference between the assets and liability? On based on that, whatever difference come, what is your net worth, that is what is the balance which is there, we need to pay a accredited tax on it. So here, that is why I said it's going to be a very huge tax for a charitable trust which has an immovable property. A trust which does not have an immovable property, not to worry about it. They can really plan it in a proper way, and the tax can be minimized or it can become nil also. So 115 TD is applicable to us. FSI, that is details of income from outside India, and tax relief only to resident. Like, this, if a charitable trust has any income outside India, they need to show about it. And the tax relief for the tax paid outside India, they may, like it is a double taxation treaty for a resident, even for a trust. If suppose they have income from outside India, they can, show this income, whatever tax has been paid, they can get a set off here. Likewise, they do it in a resident where, double tax, that the double taxation treaty would be applicable out here also. Details of foreign assets and income from any other source outside India would be applicable. And shareholding of the unlisted companies. If suppose we have unlisted shares and it has been given a gift to a charitable institution or a donation to a charitable institution, we need to mention about this unlisted company shares. A schedule is given where everything has been, columns are given for that. We need to fill up that column, and accordingly give all the information to the government, to the income tax department. Now I come to the part B, which is a very important part which I will be dealing with it. That is a statement of income for the period ended 31st March 2020, and TTI, that is computation of tax liability on the total income. This statement of income for the period ended on 31st March 2020 is whatever your schedules that you have filled up at the starting of the ITR. It just takes that into consideration. It starts with a very, very appropriate thing. What it states: if registered under section 12A or 12AA, or registered under section 1023C4, 5, 6, 6A, then you fill up this total income thing. So it becomes very important for us to fill up. Now, if you see here, first column is of voluntary contribution. 1 minute, I'll just go through that. Yeah. I think you are able to see this, or it's not very clear. Hello? You are able to see this, ma'am? Shashanji, you are able to see this?
What you're seeing? What is to be seen?
This is a B, part B. It is been what I have just shown, what I have shared right now with you.
No, it can't be seen.
It is not been seen?
No.
No, sir.
So
No.
whatever I was sharing was not seen by you?
No, sir.
Oh, 1 minute. I thought I have shared everything.
But
Oh.
actually, it was very lucid, so there was no need of seeing that also, because you explained it very nicely.
Oh. 1 minute. This is where I need to show you, because
Yeah, that's it.
1 minute. I'll just,
Srushti,
Yes, sir.
can it be how it can be shared?
No, I'll just take it. Kuchi?
Yeah, there is a sharing option.
Yeah, there is a sharing of 1 minute. 1 minute. So I was just looking myself. Wow. Just share this part, no, beta? It was not shared only. Shahid. Show this one. I think I have some problem with my computer. I'm sorry. Huh?
No, sir. You can explain, sir.
Yeah, I think I just explained like that.
हाँ, गौतम भाई वही अच्छा रहेगा.
Sorry. Yeah, really.
It's all right, sir.
So let me just take you to this part BTI, which is there. And you know, the very first column is voluntary contribution other than the corpus fund. They will take it from that voluntary contribution VC. Thereafter, there is a voluntary contribution forming part of the corpus. Again, it will be taken from the voluntary contribution, and the aggregate income will be taken from the AI. So this becomes a total income of the trust. Thereafter, there is an application of income for charitable or religious purpose or for stated object. So here they will take it from ER. There is revenue expenditure, there would be a capital expenditure. Again, they would take into consideration. If there's any accumulation, let us say an accumulation amount deemed to have been applied during the previous year as per clause 2 of the explanation to section 11.1. What does this mean is that we are going to file form number 9A and we are going to accumulate this for 1 year, that is for the next year. And you know, in next year we are going to spend. So that is 9A will be filed online on or before the due date, that is before the 31st October 2020 right now. And accordingly, that much whatever is accumulated would be allowed for you to defer for the next year to be spent. So here you have to give the details of it when you have filed this form and you know what is the date of furnishing the your form and everything online. Then there is an accumulation. Now here also accumulation, if you see, that is your 11.1A, that is 15% that you get. So this 15% you get it on the gross total income which is there other than your corpus donation. Thereafter you have this accumulation under section 11.2, that is a 5-year accumulation. So here form number 10 has to be filed online along with the resolution, and it has to be filed on or before the due date, that is 31st October 2020. And here, you know, whatever the things are there. Thereafter, there is one column which is amount eligible for exemption under section 11.1C. What is this 11.1C? 11.1C is the amount which have been spent out of India. As you have, I don't know, many people must have aware, there is a Tata Trust recent ITT judgment wherein income tax department has disallowed whatever expenditure they have done out of India, and they had this 11.1C permission from CBDT. In ITT, definitely Tata Trust won the case, but 11.1C is where you have to take a prior permission from CBDT for any money that has to be spent out of India, no doubt for the object for which the trust was created in India. So once you get that permission, then you need to have this amount eligible for exemption under section 11.1C. That part has to be there. Thereafter, you know, there are additions which are very, very important. Is that, let us say you have accumulated for 1 year, that is you have filed form number 9A, and in 1 year you are not able to use that money. So that would be added in your income chargeable under section 11 subsection 1 capital B. So that would be treated as an income that again cannot be accumulated, that cannot be, you know, adjusted anywhere. Therefore, that on which tax has to be paid. Then there is income chargeable under section 11.3. This would be your 11.2 accumulation. If you are not able to utilize this within 5 years, then whatever balance remains has to be shown as an income out here. Then income in respect of which exemption under section 11 is not available. That is your anonymous donation, which is not been it will not be allowed. So here the figure of that would be shown. So this also will be taken off from the voluntary contribution where we have to show this anonymous donation. Then there is a disallowable under section 13.1C and 13.1D. That is any special expenses done or incurred for the trustees, relatives, or any of the close relatives of any of the substantial contributor who are there. So which has to be disallowed and shown as an income out here. Then income chargeable under section 12.2. That is also an income that has to be added out here. And various, that is income amount disallowable under section 11.1A read with 40A1A, where the recent amendment which has come. Then 40A3, the recent amendment which has come. So this everything would be added and the total income would be generated on that which the tax would be calculated. And after calculating the tax, whatever TDS or whatever self-assessment tax has been paid, it would be allowed to the charitable institution. So TI becomes very, very important here. And, it is really, really very, I would say, important that this has to be filled up in a proper way. And the end thing should be again reworked and looked into it, whether if everything is okay, your net taxable income should be nil, or if there is any surplus, or if there's any tax payable on it, as per your computation, it should look into that only. So, this is what my presentation is. And thank you very much. Sorry for not sharing the screen. I think I have sent my presentation to you. You are requested to give this presentation to the participants who are there. And thank you very much. Any questions which are there, I'm ready to take that question, please.
Srushti, I would like to talk on this.
Yeah.
Gautam bhai.
Yeah.
Good.
Before question and answer session, I'll just invite our session chairman, C. Shashank Patki. So please give your remark.
Yeah. Actually, in a remark, I want to discuss certain things with you, Gautam bhai. There are certain issues on this particular thing, because I will say that these are FAQs, because what happens when I am dealing with trust taxation and all, many people, they have certain queries because they are frequent. So now you are given an excellent presentation on filing of ITR 7.
Right.
So Gautam bhai, ये एक ऐसा है कि for this AY 2021, that filing of ITR 7 properly is very important, because now you have to file that 12 AB that will be applicable from 1st April 2021. Before that, this is the last return. So wherever the trusts were there who were subjected to scrutiny assessments, so their scrutiny was over. So naturally, when 12 AB would be filed, so whatever questions CIT, because now in our case, even CIT is asking for certain expenses, Xerox vouchers also, Xerox copies of the vouchers also.
Yeah.
So for that particular purpose, the way you are filing your ITR 7 for 2021, it has become of immense importance. That's what I feel.
Yeah, you're right, sir. Perfectly right.
Again, then there are certain issues in this. I want your opinion on that also, because in many cases, if you see, there are demands of trust. Now our current CIT exemption, I have got very nice experience with him, that Neerajji Bansal.
Yeah.
He has acted proactively, and he has actually reduced the tax liabilities by giving condonation for filing of Form 10, Form 10B, like that. And he has done a tremendous job, because he reduced the liability by crores of rupees. But still in that, sir, what happens that from CPC, the questions are being raised, because what people are doing, that filing of ITR 7 and filing of 10B and 10BB, they are not coordinating. Because whatever you are mentioning as income in 10B or 10BB and whatever application, people are making one particular mistake of incurring of expenditure and application of income.
Perfect.
I feel that 10B and 10BB, that is to be filed, but that particular thing should be reconciled with your ITR 7.
100%.
So I'm suggesting people that you first file ITR 7, then on the basis of that, you prepare your 10B, then you file 10B, and then you file income tax return, because that has been a problem. Then, sir, secondly, when we're talking about 11.2, accumulation. So what has happened specifically when I talk to the even CIT also, they are saying that purpose, whatever you are mentioning in Form 10, it has to be a specific purpose. So in one case, what has happened, sir, there was huge donations and nothing was used. So even 9A was not applicable, only 11.2 was to be given. And in that Form 10, they have mentioned education and medical fund can't be the purpose. So that is my opinion also, because
I will just intervene here.
yeah.
No, nothing should be taken as what is written. I don't know why that notion is there in the mind of the department. See, I always argued there, and I have been constantly following up then that charitable trust should not be looked after for your tax collection.
Yeah.
Because there are some common mistakes which have been made. The intention is not that they don't want to. There are certain trusts which are really doing a lot of activity which are not charitable. But unfortunately, this small trust, due to some error, because if you see this Form 10, what you rightly said, education and medical fund, actually they mean that education and medical expenses they want to spend. By mistake, the fund has been written. So here the department has to give a leverage. That is what was concern was there. Every time there is an amnesty for the defaulters in the income tax who don't pay. There are people like who are waiting for the amnesty, and they will come in the amnesty and they will take all the benefit, and we poor people who are filing every year return, we don't get anything. So why not they should come out and amnesty in the trust? Because once you give them an opportunity, please. So that was the intention of this 12AB, that once this opportunity should be given to a charitable institution to come out clean. But unfortunately, even here also they failed, because if you see the form that they have come out, is going to be a nightmare again. I don't know what is going to happen. So here I don't see any reason that, either the government intention is very clear to kill the charity, not to allow anybody, or to have people who are politically very well connected to have their trust, and they can do anything. Because if they don't file form 10, don't file form 10B, even they don't file the income tax return, their income tax would not be levied, chargeable to tax. So here this is, I think they have, somewhere down the line the department has to take a lenient view, because the trust are managed by people who have a part-time thing. It's an honorary thing, not knowledgeable. I can understand that, people have to have knowledge about administering and managing the trust, but give them some time. Don't come at a one go. Even your condonation, what has happened, sir, in Bombay, that the condonation is given. But if you see section 13, subsection 9, if you file your return of income after the due date, your condonation has no validity. Your 11(2) will not be valid.
Right, right.
So again, these things are creating a lot of trouble. And it is not that, even we as a professionals who are into practice right from the so many years, we sometimes make some mistakes. So what about these poor trustees who are there? Sorry, you can continue, Mr. Shanji, please.
Please, sir. गौतम भाई, हुआ क्या है कि टेक्निकलिटीज एंड प्रोसीजर्स दे आर टेकन लीड रोल ना,
Yeah.
कोई देखते नहीं है. So actually, so this has become a very big problem. But what happens in case of small trusts generally? Because if they disallow, then you don't have any other way than to go for appeal, and that appeal and all that is not affordable to the trust.
It's not affordable.
So generally, I am advising small trusts ki okay, he is saying a specific purpose now. See that it can be done specifically, at least for small trusts. Because in bigger case, we can go for appeal and all those things.
Yeah, right.
So secondly, there is again what you said about unlisted shares. So there in specifically, I'm looking after so many educational institutions and all. So what happens now? People go for a loan, and now cooperative banks. If we go to cooperative banks for their loan, so that share linking is there.
100%. Yeah.
So that shares are there. So in one case, actually, and that case has been decided in appeal also against the trust. They say that investment in cooperative shares is not as per 11.5. So they were given notice of cancelling the 12A. So that has been the issue. So here, really
very unfortunate, because nothing is in my hand.
I gave one presentation. I said that actually it is not an investment, it is a deposit, because it will be returned back and something like that. I got my case cleared legally. But still, sir, it is a problem, because what happens now, if people don't know that in unlisted shares, you have to mention that also. Because if you don't mention, because those are unlisted shares shown in investments, and if you don't show it, then again they will say it is a concealment of information.
Yeah, 100%. You need to, yeah, you're right.
I'm advising all the chartered accountants that they should be very particular in giving at least correct information. Okay, fighting for this justice, that is another thing, but at least there should not be any mistake on that particular thing, sir.
Here, I think, right now the current, like how you said, the Commissioner of Income Tax, Mr. Neeraj Bansal, who is very good out there.
Yeah.
We have a very nice commissioner right now, Mr. Anurag Sai. He is very practical, helping a lot of people and doing really wonderful job. We had a session with him, live session, and he really, whatever questions were, we had a panel discussion with him, and he was very forthcoming, and he has really given an excellent view of his, that is personal view, that what should be a situation. So in that, whatever view, what I just said about the specific, spending under 11.2 for the object, he is also of the view that no, there should be a leniency to that, and somewhere down the line, wherever the past mistakes which are committed, we should not recap that. Subsequently, if you do it, then now at least you should be careful about it. That is view was at least.
Sir, again, just coming out of this, because now that section 12AB, that is a very hot issue. So I would just like to have your opinion on two things, a small sort of small rapid questions. First is that what you will suggest if somebody wants to form a charitable institution? What you will suggest? Society Registration Act, BPT, or Section 8 company?
I personally say, if you ask my personal opinion, I give a choice to them, because see, every creation has its own advantage and disadvantage. But ultimately, if suppose if a person is a very learned person and they are professionals or they are educated people, I always tell them to go for Section 8, sir.
Yeah, sir. And again, now that they are making a changes in CSR,
Yeah, they are.
it will be applicable only to Section 8 companies. So these poor trusts, they would be left with no CSR.
It's a very unfair, very unfair, very unfair.
So many educational institutions, according to AICTE rules, they have to form the trust. They cannot go for Section 8 company.
Yeah.
And we are not giving CSR. So actually, government should think of all these things. Then second thing, sir, in now this 12AB, with the introduction of 12AB, because earlier I was also having some trust who are having registration under 12A, 12A or 12A, I'm saying it 12A, or 1023C, 6A or 6B, that education and medical with 1 crore or more than 1 crore. Now you have to give that option once, and that will be a lifetime option. So what will be your suggestion, 12A or 1023C?
I will always go for 12 AV.
Yeah.
12 AV.
Yeah, because
no approvals.
yeah, and 1023C, there is only one thing is that in 10 baby, there is no question about 13.1. That is,
That's the only thing. If you take care of that, I think then it is always good, sir.
yeah. So thank you very much, sir. So let us see if Srishti has got any queries from the people.
Yeah, please.
Yes, sir, there are some queries.
Yeah, Srishti.
First question is Section 8 company not registered under public trust or charitable trust, ITR 7 applicable or ITR 5?
I don't know. Section 8 cannot be registered under Charity Act. Who said? I have my own view that it is not required only to be registered. So it should be ITR 7 only. It cannot be ITR 5. If the registration you are talking about not registering with the Charity Commissioner Office in the Charitable Act under the Maharashtra Public Trust Act, and I am very clear that it is not required first of all, and it should be ITR 7, 60.
Okay, thank you, sir. So next question is, can we file revised Form 10B and how much time do we have for the same?
There is no bar to it because there is nothing mentioned in it that Form 10B cannot be revised, but there is nothing in the law which says that you can file a revise. Now the situation has become so bad that even this Form 10B need to be filed on or before the due date. That is, right now 31st October is the due date. So once you file your Form 10B, based on that, there can be a situation where CPC sometimes allows you to file a revised 10B, or at the time of the scrutiny, the assessing officer may allow you. But as such, you go on filing, that filing would not be of any importance, because if it is filed after the due date, again, there is a problem. Then again, you need to go for the condonation of delay and everything.
Gautam bhai, and in this one more thing was there, because in Pune at least, that exemption wing, they have taken one particular view that if you are filing 10B, after your filing of return, they are saying it's not a valid report. They issued notices on this.
I know that is a view which was taken, but now that has been settled. If it is within the due date, then that's been settled now. So that's not much of a thing. Yeah, that's not much of a. But generally, I would always advise you to file it on the same day.
Yeah.
No hassle, because you cannot rely on the department, because who is going to come and head anybody? So that's really very tricky out here. So not to go for any litigation.
Correlated also. If you file simultaneously, you will have a control on both of them.
Exactly. Yeah, Srishti.
So the next question is, for trust already having 12A, the date of registration in 1st April to 2021, or for only new trust getting registering under 12A?
No, already all old also 12A has to come for new registration. Old, new, everybody will be there for the new 12AB now.
Okay. So next question is, can anyone use accumulated income first against application of current year and set aside current year's income under section 11 subsection 2?
If suppose the accumulation has some specific, let us say I have accumulated that 11.2 under construction of a education institution. I'm constructing that building in the subsequent year. I can really use that accumulation, and then that thereafter the income which is there again I can accumulate for the 11 too. That is possible, but I cannot just use the whatever accumulation for against any expenditure. It has to have some expenditure.
Okay. So that's all the question answer session for us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. Before saying bye to everyone, it's my privilege to propose votes of thanks. My sincere thanks to CA Gautam sir for giving your precious time and knowledge on filing ITR 7. Thank you, sir. My heartful thanks to CA Shashank Patki sir for sharing your precious time. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you,
There is
Mr.
one more
Prashant, and
question.
thank
So
you to
there
the
is
team of Pune WRC
Yeah, thank you.
for giving me this opportunity to deliberate on this subject. Thank you, everyone.
I'm here on behalf of Ruta also. Ruta is my wife.
Okay. So nice of you, sir. So nice of you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.